Yes, hello. Welcome back to Pure Math School. In case you've been following our content before, and I would like to remind you, if you've not yet subscribed to the channel, please do so. It will be of great importance, and by that you will not miss any single upload that we keep making. If you're new to the channel, if this is your first time, please also consider subscribing to the channel in order for you to follow more content, because more great content is coming. It's actually coming ahead of time. So previously in the previous video, we looked at how to solve quadratic equations using the quadratic formula. And today, unless in that video I promised you that I'll try to look for at least one way or how to apply that in real life. And today, this is a question that I have. Let's try to help the civil engineer who is trying to build a road through a circular tunnel, of which he has proposed the width of the road to be of the road surface to have 9.2 meters, and that tunnel he has measured its radius to be actually 5.2 meters. So according to the question, it's asking what should be the depth of the concrete. If I'm to maybe draw for you here, we can sketch that. Let's say that's a circular tunnel that the engineer wants to build the road through. They said that the tunnel has a radius of 5.2 there, 5.2 meters. That's the radius of the tunnel. Up to there. Let's call the center of the road to actually have a point O. And now they want, he said that the width of the road that he wants to actually build through the circular tunnel is actually of 9 meters in width. I mean 9.2 meters. I mean that length there. From there to there, let's say the width of the road. Let's name one side of the road A and the other side B. Okay. And now remember, they've said that the radius of the circular tunnel is actually 5.2. Yeah, and that's from the center to any point on the circle, on the circular outline. So you can realize that even this one will be 5.2 meters, as well as this side. Let's try to join that. Okay, 5.2 meters. So now what next? Remember that this radius, when a road is going to be built, actually from the middle of the circle, that's from the center of the circle, joining up to that point where I joined, is actually going to cut that road AB into the middle. That means actually that 9.2 can be separated into, can be divided into two equal parts. That's 4.6 meters, and this side will also be 4.6 meters. If you can see, okay, let's name this depth, because now since we have put an example, like as a sketch, we have put that's where the road will be. So the depth of the concrete that you will have to apply will be this, from here up to here, to the bottom of the tunnel. Let's give that D. Since it's unknown, let's just let it be D. But how will we get that? Let's also consider this to be uppercase D, this point where the line joining the center to the to give the radius of the circle is actually going to meets with the center of the road. Let it actually be uppercase D. So how do we get that OD? Okay, because remember we don't have that. We may, of course, what I want us to solve for this D, but in order for us to solve for this lowercase d, which is the depth of the concrete needed to put a layer of the road, we will need to solve for that D. So that D can actually be solved. Remember, we know the whole of that length is 9.2, so we may have that this D, which will appear in this short distance up OD. So you realize that we will actually have, if we have O up to this point, this base, which is 5.2, you realize that OD will actually be 5.2 minus D. Since the whole of that length is 5.2, so to get that length we are going to remove this length D, which is unknown, from 5.2 to get that short length. So that's it. But you realize that we still can't solve for this D that we need, the depth of the concrete. So what do we do now? We will have to check here up. We know it's now appearing here. I think we have something to apply here, since you can observe that triangle OAD. Let me draw that. We have OAD. Okay, since we have OAD, we have here 5.2 from that. Then here we have 4.6. Then here we have actually the OD, which is 5.2 minus D. Okay, now what do you realize from there? Since this is a right angle triangle, as you can see from there, it's right angled, we can just apply Pythagoras theorem. See, Pythagoras theorem is going to help us here once again. So you say from Pythagoras theorem, we realize that that 5.2 squared will be given by 4.6 squared plus 5.2 minus D, all of that squared, if you remember your Pythagoras theorem very well. So we try to see that 5.2 squared will actually be 4.6 squared, plus if you expand that bracket, I think let's recall our identities, we will have to square that, then plus, I think it's a minus, and then let me see, 5.2 minus D into 5.2 minus D. We have 5.2 squared, then minus 5.2 D, then minus 5.2, so it's going to be minus 10.4 D. Okay, then plus D squared. If you expand that, you can just take your time and expand that if you're not sure with what I've got here. So here we're going to have 5.2 squared equals to, I think we realize that this will go, if you subtract 5.2 on both sides, so actually we can have here 0 will be equal to 4.6 squared, because that will go with that. When you subtract on both sides, it will just vanish. Then minus 10.4 D plus D squared. So in actually we have a quadratic equation, which is D squared minus 10.4 D, then plus 4.6 squared. 4.6 squared is actually, I think 4.6 squared, I think 21.16. yeah, it can be 21.16 equals to 0. If you try to square that 4.6, and I think it will be there. That's what I think. So now you realize that we have a quadratic formula there. And remember that previously we applied Pythagoras theorem to help us reach there. So at this point again, we're going to apply now the quadratic formula. Okay, this is where now the application of the quadratic formula will also come in. Remember that we have an unknown we will get from the quadratic formula, which says that minus b plus or minus root of b squared minus 4ac out of all that under the root out of 2a. You realize that here a is a coefficient of d squared, which is 1. You realize that a is 1. Then b is the coefficient of d, which is going to be negative 10.4. okay, then here we're going to have here c, which is the constant term, is going to be 21.6. okay, I know 0.16. okay, so let's try to see how we can Now, so for that we try to substitute for them. You have negative, the minus there, then minus, it will actually be positive 10.4. okay, then plus or minus root of what? Root of b squared, which is negative 10.4, all of that squared together, it's negative minus 4 into a, which is 1, times c, which is 21.16, whole of that under the root out of 2 times a, which is 1, because we got our a value is actually 1. So let us try to go to the other page. We now had our d was actually 10.4 plus or minus root of negative 10.4 squared minus 4 into 1 into 21.16, all that under the root out of 2 into 1. okay, I think that's a step we had reached. So our d, actually, I think if we solve here, we just need to first of all simplify that. You realize that here you'll have 10.4 squared minus that. When you also multiply that, I think the solution I can see here, 10.4 squared. Calculator will have to help us here to simplify this whole root. Then we get we get this term inside, then get the root, then the result of that will be plus or minus that 10.4. okay, so when you do that, I think the whole of this under the root will actually be 2.425. actually, I think, because now this 2 will divide that to be 5.2. that's half of it, 5.2. Plus or minus that root, the result will be, I think you will have to check it out, is 2.425. okay, I think to 3 decimal places. okay, that is d. So that d will actually be that, so you will have two values of d, that's 5.2 plus 2.425, or 5.2 minus 2.425. so your values of d will actually be either 7 point, here, because I see 7.625, 6, let me see here, plus 5. okay, I think I going to have 5.2 plus 5.2 plus 2.425. We're going to have 5.2 here, 6, then 7. I think we're going to have 7 point, let's put it to 3 significant figures, let me say 2 decimal places. okay, or here we're going to have 2 point, when you subtract that, I think we're going to come in something like 2.78, also to 2 decimal places. okay, so that will be the solution for the depth of the concrete that will need to be laid in that circular path. So if you try to, why do we have two answers? In most cases you realize that these answers are preferable. One will actually be preferable to the other, because one will be, I think, will suit always the condition. Let's now try to draw that circular path again with the depth of the road, and see for our case which one would we go with. I think 7 point, this one, okay, let's this 2 point, I think that should be shorter. Remember, from here, from the center all up to down is just 5.2, so I think 2.78 is below. D equals to 2.78. okay, that one. Then here we realize that 7.63 is actually above the radius, which was 5.2. so if this is the radius of the road, that means 7 point, let's the whole of that, so we're going to have D equals to 7.63. okay, so we can say that's the concrete base of the road. So it's upon the engineer to see which one will be better. Like for me, if I'm an engineer, what would I say? I would say that this one gives us more space up, so trucks with long with trucks which are so actually like they go so tall into space would actually even fit to pass through here rather than here. I'd say a chance of maybe trucks with which have very tall bodies or upwards into space will actually may have issues taking this. So it depends on the engineer which one would you choose, which depending on the condition you will know which answer can help you best or can suit your project well. So please, thank you for coming to Pure Math School once again. I would like to consider that please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, don't forget to like the video in case you enjoyed it, and please share to anyone you might refer the video to. Never know, it might help so much. So let me summarize for you. Subscribe, like the video in case you enjoyed it, let me know something in the comment box, and I promise I will engage with you. Turn on that notification bell, always don't forget that, because you'll be informed every time I make new uploads. And please share. Thank you so much. I sign out.